I'm Hannah and this is Nathan. For the past 3 years we've been exploring the UK in our van, Douglas, a 1999 VW T4 Caravelle. But this May, with some life changes approaching and practicalities prevailing, we made the decision to pass him on, ending an era that we won't forget in a hurry. So today is van cleaning out day. I'm not sure where we're going to put all of the stuff that's in like our bouldering mats and our camping stuff. The day has come to say goodbye to Dougie. As most of our van life adventures exist on YouTube as videos for us to look back on, it seemed only fitting to give Doug the send-off he deserves, and revisit some of our favourite memories on the road. Before that though, let's go right back to the beginning, to April of 2017, and the day we picked up Doug from the south of England. Nathan and I had wanted a van for a long time, and inspired by a trip to the south of France in an old VW, we began our van search in the spring. As luck would have it, Easter break coincided with the fortuitous placement of an Auto Trader ad for a van just 20 minutes from Nathan's parents' house in Sussex. We went to see the van, fell in love, and signed the papers, inheriting Douglas. Now that we had a van, we had some work to do. We had to build a bed, or rather, Nathan's dad built the bed, so thanks to Nathan's dad for that, we owe you one. We had to make some soft furnishings, so thank you to Anita for helping us with those, we owe you one. And we had to figure out what van camping was all about. And where better to figure it out than in the English Lake District, on a soggy, bank holiday weekend in May. With no previous knowledge of camping in a van, we stayed in the national park for 3 nights, waking up in the van each morning and driving each night to a new spot to explore. Looking back on these clips, it's really difficult to believe that it was 3 whole years ago that they were taken, as I remember so clearly the feeling of excitement at finally owning the van and the possibilities that came with it. Our first weekend in the van kick-started a 3-year-long love affair with throwing everything into the back and heading out into the dales, the peaks or the lakes with our climbing gear, our running gear, our swimming gear. We were hooked on the freedom of it all. As we bumped along the tarmac every weekend or over the long summers, past the industrial outskirts of cities and international parks, our van packed with our running shoes and our bouldering mats, the veneer of urban life peeled away. So this is Doug. Doug is our VW T4 Caravelle, and we've had Doug since last Easter, so just over a year now, and in that time Doug's been a fair way, so he's been up and down the country and over to France a couple of times bouldering. We knew that we wanted Doug to be a weekend camper or a short trips kind of camper van, but we had 3 main specifications: that we wanted it to be cheap, that we wanted it to be easy to fit, and we wanted the flexibility to be able to keep the back seats in so that whilst we could use it to sleep in, we could also take friends on bouldering trips. So to meet those 3 criteria, what we ended up doing was we have a box which essentially works as a unit which goes into the boot of the van. What it is essentially a wooden plywood box made out of van ply, which is a little bit more expensive but weighs half the amount that normal plywood does, so it's really good for use in vans. So what it essentially is a wooden box with a hinge mechanism on top which folds out into a wooden sleeping platform. Then we have 3 pillow cushions of high density foam which we have covered in these nice lurid colours, which we lay out on top of that, and they serve as kind of like our mattress. And then what works out really well for us, because we take Doug on so many bouldering trips, we can actually use our bouldering pads as the support for that wooden structure. But if you weren't using the bouldering pads, you could slide in the middle row of seats which slide in and slide out of the Caravelle and use them to support the wooden structure. So that works out really well for us because that means that we don't have to store the bouldering pads separately, and they kind of double up as our bed. When I look back on our adventures in the van, a couple stand out to me most clearly. First, getting the van stuck on a freezing day in the Langdale Valley. I actually probably have more memories of van life in the freezing cold than I do in the summer, but maybe that's testament to the British weather. We would often wake up with frost on the inside of the van windows and see how long we could get away with keeping the heater on during cold nights in the Peak District.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah, keep going. Got a bit of a parking situation. Keep going. You can still go, yeah, keep going, keep going. A little bit more, a little bit more. Right, stop, stop. You're nice and tucked in. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a bit of a situation. We've managed to get the car stuck on some damp ground, and we're trying to get it out of this ditch. I don't think Nathan's very happy. I think he's a bit stressed. Our August bank holiday trip to the Lake District was one of my very favourite trips. During a weekend heatwave, we packed up the van and headed to the lakes for some coastal bouldering at St Bees. We truly do have countless hours of footage from trips to the Lake District, but this trip is one I think about often. Though we were only in the lakes for a few days, we did and saw so much that the days took on a seemingly endless quality. These weekends will for sure be the ones I miss the most in the interim time between Doug and our next van. For the feeling of being able to leave Leeds on a Friday afternoon and spend a weekend in a new place entirely. Waking up in the morning knowing that the day ahead was going to be an exciting one, perhaps ending with a freezing cold dip in a waterfall or a truly amazing sunset in the valley. Cooking up dinner on the stove and fighting midges from our beds before we tried to sleep. These trips really were the embodiment of van life for me. They'll be what I remember most. It seems a little unfair to do Doug this disservice when he was an extremely reliable van, but I'll always remember spending the night before Christmas Eve in a service station halfway down the country, with Doug's cracked exhaust box, shivering in our down jackets and any of the clothes that we had in our suitcases that we could put on, and it being a really miserable time, and yet an adventure despite everything else. And those are mostly the memories I have of Doug. Not being the most comfortable, or having the luxuries of heating, a toilet, or the ability to stand up, but there being no place else I'd rather be. While this chapter of our lives may be over, we're sure the pipeline holds many more van life adventures. We've had a great 3 years in Doug, and though we may be gone, the freedom of van life still calls, and the promise of a bigger van conversion project beckons from the future. So I really hope you enjoyed this look back at our time with Doug. If you like this video, consider liking it and subscribing so that you can see more from me, and I'll see you in my next one.